So the topic is, even mystics have bills to pay. And the question might come up, so why are you talking about that? Well, the bottom line is we have bills to pay. And you could say that perhaps we're facing something like an obstacle. You know, 2 years ago, we had a whole lot more money in the bank than we have today. And we spent some of that money on operating expenses. And we woke up one day and said, wait a minute, we can't keep doing this. If we keep doing this, we won't keep doing. So we decided collectively that it was time to actually have a budget. So for the first time in the history of this organization, we actually have a budget, which is a major accomplishment because we were always kind of, oh, well, if we're doing Spirit's work, it'll take care of itself. And that's true at one level, but at another level, stewardship requires that we pay attention. So, do we have an obstacle? You might say that. Is it something to be fearful about? Not at all. Because you see, the problem with fear is that it's creative. All of your thinking is creative. And if you have a fear, you're energizing that fear. And that applies so clearly to the realm of money. Because money makes people crazy. It really, really does. I learned that the first 2 years I was in law practice. I saw perfectly normal people get really crazy when there was an issue of money. Just. Fear does weird things to people. So in this facing of what seems to be an obstacle, our choice is to operate out of love or fear. And obviously, we don't teach fear. We don't encourage fear. In fact, we will tell you that fear is counterproductive. Fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. So there truly is nothing in this universe to be fearful of. And just like the song we sang this morning about a magic penny, if you hang on to it, you won't have any. If you give it away and spend it freely, you'll get more and more of it. It's just like love. So there's this balance that we operate on in terms of how do we be stewards for what we have and draw to us what we would choose for ourselves and energize spiritual principles. It's an interesting tightrope to walk. Perhaps you feel like I'm standing up here complaining, but I guarantee you that I'm not, because the first thing that one learns on this side of the microphone is that teaching fear is counterproductive. So never, 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 never do I wish to say to you, we don't have enough money, we need more money. So I'm not saying that. And I'm saying that we could use more money. We need to have at our fingertips the ability to respond to what goes on around the world. Now, I'm sure every one of you drove in this driveway this morning and you saw Costco sitting across the road. Costco used to be buildings just like this one, owned by the same people that own this building. So therefore, you should have a firm picture in your mind of what is almost surely going to happen to this building at some point in the future. Now, is it going to happen tomorrow or next week? I doubt it seriously. But the handwriting is on the wall. So we need to have the ability to go somewhere else when the time comes. If you were at the QCC last week, you heard about a piece of vacant land that's available that would be ideal for us. It's perfectly located. It's out in the township where taxes are low, and so it's not worth a heck of a lot of money like land inside the city. If you've noticed in the last few years, all of the churches that have been built in the townships. Nobody's building a church inside the city limits of Ann Arbor anymore for a very clear reason. The land is too valuable. It costs too much money. But we probably don't have the ability at this moment to pull that off because we are operating under a budget. We've cut expenses substantially this year. We're doing things a little differently than we've done in the past. And there's an income issue. Now, we happen to be self-supporting. We self-support through our own contributions. This is a spiritual family. We exist because we have an energy of attractiveness. And we exist for the purpose of encouraging people to discover their true spiritual home and their true spiritual nature. And if this organization is to continue, we need to have the ability to respond to what's going on in the world. As the title of the talk suggests, even mystics have bills to pay. We pay $3,090 a month in rent. We pay utilities. We have phone charges. We buy the internet so that you can come in here and operate your wireless devices. We have insurance to pay. And salaries to pay. And none of us are getting rich on the salaries. And if you've ever looked at the income statement, you can prove it to yourself. This is not Dave and Della's ticket to Las Vegas. So what is the obstacle? The problem, if it's a problem, is that we depend almost entirely on the Sunday offerings. So what I invite you to do is to consider the possibility of converting yourself from, I'll throw money in the pot when I'm there, into a regular membership kind of a relationship. There are a number of people that are already doing that, and you can do it by setting up a recurring PayPal donation. And the reason that we would encourage you to do that is that we have expenses that go on whether you're here or not. And so we need to have the income whether you're here or not. It's just that simple. You see, there are maybe 70 or 75 people here this morning. So each week, we need to have $1,800 of income. And if you do the math, that's about $27 a seat. Now, I know that not everybody in here is going to put $27 in the collection bag this morning. I know that, and that's not the problem. The issue is there are probably 250 to 300 people who consider themselves members of this community, and they come on occasion, and when they're here, they contribute. So what we're trying to encourage people to do is to take on a level of ownership in the continuing viability of this organization. So that requires us to step up to the plate. And if we had 250 people contributing regularly, whether they're here or not, it works out to be $9 per person instead of $27. So, I mean, the math is very simple. Do it that way, and it doesn't cost nearly as much. So, what we have is an opportunity. We have an opportunity to solidify our financial standing. We have an opportunity perhaps to even think seriously about looking at that vacant land. For those of you who were here 8 or 9 years ago when we did a big visioning process, we dreamed the dream and saw a vision of ourselves in a very pastoral setting, out in the country with lots of trees and greenery around. And I guarantee you this particular piece of property is that in spades. It's almost 8 acres. It's got a pond. It's got trophy trees on it. It's drop dead gorgeous. And it's $125,000. And it's available on land contract. So we could probably pull that off if we were in a position to be financially healthy. And we have been a little bit shaky financially for the last few years. We are turning that around. The last 2 months, we've achieved our income goal, and that's great news. You know, we're happy about that. But the fact is that challenges are blessings. They truly are blessings because they give us the opportunity to see how we can better incorporate spiritual principles into how we lead our lives. And that is the purpose of the whole thing. The whole thing is calculated to increase our ability to be in tune with spirit and in tune with spiritual principles, and to allow spiritual principles to be the guide of how we operate. Lindsay belongs to an organization that is, like us, self-funded through their own contributions. And they have a phrase that's very appropriate and very useful, and we're going to steal it from them. I'm sure they willingly donate it, and just like love, it's the more you give away, the more you have. And they talk about their contributions as both generous and affordable. So we don't want anybody to do anything that they can't afford. But what we want you to be is generous and consistent with what you can afford. And we know that not everybody's going to be able to write a check for $100 a week. Some people do, but we know that not everyone can do that. And that's fine. We're not asking you to part with your firstborn child. Maybe some of you would like to. Nah. No, not Leo. He's too precious. So, a challenge is a blessing. It gives us the opportunity to practice living by spiritual principle, to practice being who we talk about. So, my apologies to those of you who think this is a complaint. It isn't, but a frank and honest discussion of family finances is really appropriate. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in a dysfunctional family, but the last thing they want to do is have an appropriate discussion about finances. So we're just laying it out for you. That's what's going on, and that's what you're invited to do, is to set up a regular recurring payment. You can do it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, doesn't matter, because even we mystics have bills to pay. And if you like this place being here, we need to have enough resources to duplicate it someplace else, because the handwriting is on the wall. So let us see this as a great blessing, as the opportunity to grow into our awareness of our infinite connection to Spirit. So that's what I think about mystics having bills to pay. And now it's open mic time.